Hi and welcome back. So at the end of the last part we did the downlighters final sort of render scene setup. So this is the actual the effect there once all the photometric lights are in. You can see the sort of patterning it produces. So now today we're going to work on the candles. This is the last lighting setup we're going to do. It's nothing too complicated again. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to turn off all these lights. So I'm just going to come up to these ceiling downlighters and these shelf downlighters and just turn them off. So we're back to our night shot, which is the setup we made at the start of the downlighters. So if you've missed the downlighters scene out and you want to work just on the candle, if you go back to the downlighters a video there, you'll see how we set up the environment to get this sort of bluish tinge. I'm also going to come over to the render tab there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select, let's go over to a perspective view, I'm just going to select the master light. Or just find it might be easier. Okay, we want to turn the bulb off. So we're going to change the material, so we turn the sort of emitting material off, and we're turning on the sort of off material on. Now we want to make a little new sort of object here for the candle. So I'm going to hop back over to the model view just to speed things up slightly. Now all I'm going to do for this, I'm just going to basically get the cube primitive here. We're going to add a new mesh layer. Okay. I'm just basically just going to make a little, just a wee square. Okay, like so. I'm going to hit the M cube it's selected and just make a new just new material. I'm just going to call it flame, or you can call it whatever you want really. Okay. Now over in the material here, let's come over to the properties. Diffuse I'm going to leave on 80%, all source down, I'm just leave all this on as standard. The specular I'm just going to put down to 0, I'm going to turn it off. Same with the reflection, I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to turn on double sided. Okay, let's go over here. For luminosity, I'm going to, even though we're going to use a point light, I'm going to give it a little bit. Excuse me. Just to keep the texture nice within the scene more than anything. And then the actual colour, I'm just going to pull back to like a yellowy orangey type colour. Okay. Let's come over to the render tab quickly. I'm just going to turn on to my one of my other cameras, just for the minute. I just want to just position this so I'm just looking at the so I'm just looking at that plane basically. Okay, I'm going to come up to add layer. We're going to load an image map in. Now you'll see I'll give you two. I'll give you like a little diffuse picture of the flame, and then a sort of an alpha overlay to cut out the black. So I'm going to load in the diffuse. Turn off anti-aliasing. going to add a new image map. I'm going to bring in the alpha. I'm going to change the type to stencil. You'll see that will cut out the surrounding area. I'm going to duplicate the diffuse. I'm going to change the type to luminous amount. And that will use the luminosity we created with the actual material, and based on the actual image itself will change how much luminosity is coming out. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the diffuse colour. I'm going to duplicate it again, and I'm going to change this one to luminous colour. And now you'll see we've got a nice flame. Okay, I'm going to drag this above the base shader. Because if you remember, the base shader is basically controlling the rest of the scene, and that's got things like casting shadows, receiving shadows on, which we don't really want for this. We want to overwrite that. So the way you can overwrite any type of things like visibility options is basically just to drag it above the base and then come up to add layer. We're going to add a new shader. I'm going to turn off shadows, casting and receiving. So now this plane won't receive or cast any shadows. Okay. So now we've got our little plane. What I'm basically going to do, I'm just going to rotate it just to face the camera. It's almost like a little billboard. What I'm going to do, I'm going to basically just position it like so. Now for the small candles, I'll just scale it down a little bit. And for the big candles, make it slightly bigger. And just for each one, basically, just tweak it slightly, just so it doesn't look like the same each time. Now you can see a bit of the wick actually in here. So we can bring that down so it basically corresponds to where the wick is. Within the scene like that. Okay. What also we're going to do, we're going to create a light. I'm going to create a point light. Let's just find it. Let's make sure we've got the show lights turned on. Now what I'm basically going to do here, I'm just going to position it basically and now over in the shader tree there, I'm just going to put dissolve down to about 50%. The intensity right down. The samples, I'm afraid you're going to have to put up dramatically high. And then the last thing, the actual colour. So if we come down to the material, now what we're going to do, if you Google Kelvin settings for lights. You can Google sort of Kelvin for lamps, fluorescence. So in this case, I've Googled it for candles, and it's 1,800. Well, it's between 1,500 and 1,800. Excuse me. Okay, so there's our light. So basically what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pause the video, I'm going to go around, I'm going to stick one on every one of the candles, and when I come back you can see how it's looking at that stage. So back in a moment. Hi and welcome back. So as you can see now, I've gone around, I've basically done the same for each of the candles there. We'll come over to the render tab. And you can see now with my cameras, I've got about 3 cameras. I've got a scene camera, and I've got 2 close-up cameras. One of looking at these sort of candles down there, and one looking at this corner here with these candles there. So you can see it gives quite a nice effect. As long as you make the flames quite subtle, and the lights quite subtle, that's quite a good cheat. Just a little billboard. Okay, so there's the scene camera view. So you've got a bit of the sort of night light coming through still, and the scene's basically lit from the candles. Okay, so that's the end of the actual modelling and lighting tutorials, and the last thing we've got to do when we come back, we'll take the day shot into Photoshop, and I'll show you my rough workflow for handling post-production. So bye for now.